On July 14, 1999, the construction site of the new baseball stadium rising on the west side of Milwaukee stood as a monument to ambition, civic pride, and modern engineering, its skeletal steel framework stretching outward beneath a wide Midwestern sky, and at the center of that site loomed a machine so immense that it seemed almost mythic in scale, a towering blue lattice boom crane nicknamed Big Blue, brought in specifically to handle the most demanding phase of the project, the placement of the stadium's massive retractable roof panels. The stadium, then known as Miller Park, had been conceived not merely as a ballpark but as a symbol of renewal for the region, a state-of-the-art facility designed to protect fans from rain and cold with a movable roof that would glide open on clear days and seal shut against Wisconsin's volatile weather. And assembling that roof required a sequence of extraordinarily heavy lifts involving steel sections weighing hundreds of tons and shaped in ways that made them uniquely sensitive to wind. Big Blue, owned and operated by Lampson International, was among the largest land-based cranes in existence at the time, capable of lifting loads that dwarfed ordinary construction equipment, its long boom rising hundreds of feet into the air in a complex lattice of steel members engineered to distribute force with mathematical precision, and for weeks it had performed its duties with imposing steadiness, hoisting roof segments high above the ballpark's frame while ironworkers guided them into position with practiced coordination. Each lift was a carefully choreographed event involving engineers, crane operators, signalmen, safety supervisors, and crews working at elevation, and every variable, weight, balance, wind speed, boom angle, ground stability, had to be calculated and recalculated before a single cable tightened. That Wednesday afternoon, the crew prepared for one of the most challenging lifts yet, a 400-ton section of the retractable roof whose broad surface area meant it would interact with the wind not merely as a compact mass but as a vast panel capable of catching gusts and translating them into powerful lateral forces. At ground level, weather readings indicated wind speeds that were within the operational guidelines established for such a lift, and though conditions were breezy, they were not immediately alarming to those responsible for the decision to proceed. Yet experienced construction workers understand that wind behaves differently at height, and gusts can intensify unpredictably as they move across open spaces and around partially completed structures. As Big Blue began to take the load, its massive cables grew taut and the steel roof segment slowly lifted from its supports, rising steadily into the air while workers stationed in a man basket attached to the structure prepared to help align it once it reached its intended position, and among those men were William DeGrave, Jerome Starr, and James Borgen, seasoned ironworkers accustomed to the inherent dangers of high steel work but reliant, as all workers are, on the integrity of the equipment and the judgments guiding its operation. Observers described the early moments of the lift as controlled and deliberate, the crane's movements smooth, the roof section ascending with measured precision, but as the load climbed higher the wind began to assert itself more forcefully against the panel's expansive surface, pushing against it in ways that introduced subtle oscillations, slight shifts that may at first have appeared manageable yet signaled increasing stress within the system. A structure of that size suspended in open air can act like a sail on a ship, and even moderate gusts can generate forces far greater than their ground-level measurements suggest, especially when amplified by elevation and the geometry of the load, and though cranes are engineered with safety margins, they are not immune to the compounding effects of dynamic wind pressure interacting with immense weight at extreme height. Witnesses later recounted a moment when the movement of the roof section no longer seemed routine but uneasy, as if the balance between control and instability had narrowed to a fragile line, and within seconds that line was crossed. The crane's towering boom, subjected to forces that exceeded its tolerances, began to buckle, its lattice members deforming under the combined weight and lateral stress. And then the unimaginable occurred as Big Blue collapsed in a catastrophic cascade of steel, its massive boom crashing down onto the stadium framework and the ground below in a deafening roar that stunned everyone within sight or earshot. The collapse was swift and devastating, leaving twisted metal sprawled across the construction site and instantly transforming a scene of progress into one of tragedy, and in the chaos that followed it became clear that the 3 ironworkers in the lift basket had not survived, their lives cut short in the very environment where they had labored to build something intended to bring joy to thousands. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, sirens piercing the heavy summer air, while fellow workers stood in shock amid dust and debris, grappling with the reality that a machine synonymous with strength and reliability had failed so completely. News of the accident spread quickly throughout Milwaukee and across the nation, drawing attention not only because of the dramatic scale of the collapse but because it raised urgent questions about safety, engineering limits, and the unpredictable role of environmental forces in high-risk construction operations. Investigators, including representatives from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, conducted extensive examinations of wind data, crane specifications, lift planning documents, and communication records to determine how conditions deemed acceptable had culminated in disaster, and findings would later indicate that while surface wind speeds may have met operational guidelines, gusts at the height of the lift were likely stronger and more variable than anticipated, exerting pressures on the roof section that effectively multiplied the strain on the crane's boom. The immense surface area of the panel amplified wind forces, turning what might have been a manageable lift under calmer conditions into one vulnerable to instability, and questions emerged about the adequacy of monitoring wind at elevation versus relying primarily on ground readings, about the decision-making processes under the pressures of schedule and cost, and about whether conservative judgment might have dictated postponement. Lawsuits and legal disputes followed, as families sought accountability and companies defended their procedures, and though no investigation could restore the lives lost, the tragedy prompted widespread reflection within the construction and heavy lift industries about how to better account for dynamic environmental variables in lift planning. Construction on the stadium was halted for months as debris was cleared and safety protocols were reassessed, the delay increasing costs and intensifying public scrutiny. Yet when the ballpark eventually opened in 2001, later renamed American Family Field, the memory of that July afternoon lingered beneath the celebrations, embedded in the structure itself as a silent testament to the risks borne by those who build monumental projects. For Milwaukee, the image of Big Blue's fallen boom became an enduring symbol of both ambition and vulnerability, a reminder that even the most advanced machinery operates within limits set by physics and that nature's forces can outpace human calculations in an instant. In the years that followed, the collapse became a case study cited in engineering courses and safety seminars, prompting stricter wind monitoring practices, greater emphasis on real-time measurements at working height, more conservative operational thresholds for large surface area lifts, and deeper appreciation of the complex interplay between load geometry, elevation, and gust dynamics. The names of William DeGrave, Jerome Starr, and James Borgen remain central to that legacy, their deaths serving as a somber impetus for change within an industry continually striving to reduce risk while undertaking ever more ambitious projects. And the story of the Big Blue collapse endures not merely as an account of mechanical failure but as a profound illustration of how progress, pride, environmental unpredictability, and human judgment intersect in high-stakes construction, where moments measured in seconds can redefine a city's memory and reshape an industry's standards for generations to come.